Well, our series, The Pulse, continues tonight as we sit down with candidates for governor. Last night, we heard from Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett, the Democrat, with his sights set on replacing Governor Scott Walker in the June 5th recall election, now just 13 days away. Well, tonight, Only News 3 takes your questions submitted via email on our Channel 3000 Facebook page straight to the candidate, this time to the incumbent, Governor Scott Walker. Well, we start with Mark Felton. He's from Middleton, and he wants me to ask you, what specifically are your legislative priorities when you get reelected, if you are fortunate enough to win the vote on June 5th?
Well, a couple different things, all which relate to jobs and keeping our fiscal house in order. One of the big things we need to do, both working with the legislature and working with our administration, as well as the private sector, is help connect more people to the skill sets needed to meet the job openings of today. I just had a company in Oshkosh, and they want to hire more people. They were at 76 employees last year. They're up to about 90 right now. But their biggest problem is they don't have enough skilled workers to match those jobs. So for welders, machinists, fabricators in particular, those are areas of great need in the state. I want to do more to try and redeploy resources into those areas, and in many ways even go right into our schools and promote the benefits of a career in manufacturing.
Now, there are skeptics on that number that came out last week. Is there any chance on June 28th, that's when those numbers get confirmed, right? Any chance that's going to be off?
No. I mean, you look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics of the federal government, their own website points out that there's very little, if any, variance of any state, not just Wisconsin, between the numbers collected. Remember, the difference between the numbers my opponent highlights is a sample of 3.5% on a monthly basis with all the employers in the state. The numbers we're talking about are required by law to be collected from nearly every employer. More than 96% of all the employers in the state have to do this. This is a number that's well documented, that economists across the board, including some economists who support my opponent, all acknowledge and agree that these are the more valid numbers, and that's why people should look at them as the facts.
Next question comes from Linda Palmer. She's in Madison. She asks, after the recall election, what would you plan to do if elected to mend the fences? It's a very divided state, as you know. I mean, that's beyond denial. What can you do personally, I don't know, to reach out to Democrats? Because there are a lot of fired up people.
I think part of it's the idea of moving on and moving forward. Some of it we already started doing this last year. I mean, you get past these recalls and a lot of the influences from either side that have come into the state will move on to states like Ohio and Florida and others, and that allows us here in Wisconsin, where we've had plenty of passionate debates in the past. I remember in 2000, 2004, we were the closest blue state in America. So there's about an even number of Republican and Democrat voters out there. But I think we get past it by honing in on things we agree on. Education reform is a good example of that.
Any regrets on how you approach the collective bargaining debate?
I think if I had to do over again, what I do is last January and February, I would have made a more compelling case. I would have gone around the state. I would have included people in the discussion and told them things like, well, you know, for example, in schools across our state, before our reforms, nearly every school district in the state had to buy their health insurance from just one company. And that cost them tens of millions of dollars more than they need to. My problem was I fixed it, and then I went out and talked about it. Most politicians talk about it and never fix it. In the future, my hope is to not avoid fixing things, fixing problems that come up, but understand that not only is the product important, so is the process, and it's got to be an inclusive one.
A lot of people ask, will you make this a right-to-work state? No,
and I really have no interest in this. I think if we look back over what's happened over the last year and a half, I think the vast majority of us, regardless of party in the state, don't want to replay that debate. Ironically, the only candidate in this election who wants to do that is my opponent. The mayor of Milwaukee wants to go back and replay that exact same debate by redebating collective bargaining out there. I want to move on and move forward. And you don't do that through issues like right to work and others out there. I think most of us are just ready to move on, get onto the issues where I think there's a greater consensus out there and get the state moving forward.
Our last question from our viewer comes from Alicia Ohala Johnson, and she asks, what is the need for a defense fund for your lawyers?
For us, it's simple. We're cooperating with John Chisholm, the district attorney in Milwaukee County, someone I asked originally to look into this issue. And when you look at the volume of all the issues before us, that's something that I don't think people want the governor of the state of Wisconsin spending hours, if not days, looking into the details on. But my integrity's always been intact. It was high as a member of the state legislature, accounted for from both political parties. It's been a very high standard I've had as the county executive, continues to be as the governor, and will be throughout this whole process.
Well, again, we thank both the candidates and our viewers for submitting their questions. Look for both interviews unedited and in their entirety in the politics section of our website, channel3000.com.